Hello, my name is Graham Want and I produce the evaluation document that you have been working your way through. I've been working with the Enterprise Output Manager for 14 years now. Now we're going to look at producing a small EOM print job that will produce a customer invoice. All the data and configurations used are in the zip file named ABC Demo. However, the EOM configurations are not quite complete, and today we will go through completing those configurations. Prior to building an EOM job, you first need to make a mock-up of the end result and then work back to what the server application needs to put out. However, if you're just modernizing your output, then you need to know both ends and use EOM to do the conversion from the known input format to the new output format. In a lot of cases, you can use EOM to modernize your printed output with minimal change to your application program. Now let's look at my mock-up of the ABC company. As you can see here, I've used PowerPoint to produce the mock-up. I prefer to use PowerPoint because from it I can produce the Windows meta file, which then becomes the form that goes into the forms utility. When I'm happy with the mock-up, I would save it, and then I'd remove all the dynamic data from the form. Here is another picture of the form, just the form only now with all the dynamic data taken out. I'd save this also as a different name, and I'd save it as a Windows meta file. Now let's look at the input data that I've mocked up. The top line is the $dep header line, and in that line we've got the user tag 1 information, which is the name of the job, ABC invoice, and user tag 2 information, which is going to be the printer. In this case it's default. You can change this to whatever printer name you like. As you can see, I've used line ID identifiers at the start of each line, and the fields are fixed format. Let's go back to Output Manager now and start up the forms file utility. What you need to do first here is to set up the page, whether it be landscape or portrait. I'm going for A4 in size and portrait. Next thing you need to do is to import the form, which is your Windows meta file. So we do a load of the Windows meta file. In our case it's called ABC invoice. So there's our form, and we then normally proceed to map the fields onto that form. What I'll do now, I'll just bring in a partially completed forms definition file of the ABC invoice. As you can see here, I have defined a number of fields on this form, but there's two major fields still missing. One is the customer name and some header information on top of the invoice. In the forms file utility, we can also set the default font that we want to use. In my case, I want to use Arial 12. That means every field that I add to the form will get that default font. It can be changed on the fly, but it suits me for the moment, leave it at that. To add a field, we click on the field button and we draw our box that's going to contain our address. Now the address is going to have 5 lines as a maximum, so we'll make it a one-dimensional table of 5 lines long, and we'll also give it a name that makes sense. Okay, custom address, you can see that it's got the font of Arial 12. We'll now add another field over here, which is for the other header information on the invoice. And we know that this is going to be 4 rows. So let's make it 4 rows long. And we'll give it a name that makes sense. detail, header detail. So you can see now we've now added 2 fields to the form. At any time you can alter these forms around just by clicking on that and just pushing it up a bit like that. Okay. If you're happy with the form that you've got in front of you, you can now save it. We will now go back to Configuration Explorer. This is where we start putting in the code. So the first thing we have to do here is to import the configuration I've given you. there it is there, ABC invoice demo, and what I've given you is the data dependent attribute and the print attribute. So we do an import all, and we can now go and look at the print attribute that we just imported. Remember, you have to turn off the import export to see that side of the window with those details in it, and you can see that the print attribute has been set up with the paper type of plain paper. It's going to point to the data dependent attribute called ABC invoice. This is what's going to put the data onto the form for us. So the lines per page is 66. That just means that if we have any more than 66 lines, the automatic form feed will be done. We've told it the number of line characters coming in on the line is a maximum 132. This can be increased up to about 500 or 600, maybe beyond that. We've said the paper orientation is portrait. We've said using the standard Windows driver, and we've said the margins are all set to 0, and the input ignore driver margins. So we're going to use the margins that the driver normally uses. Sometimes it's necessary to say ignore, but we're not in this case. Another interesting field here is the command files. Now here we see top of page directory aliases. So you point this to the command file and the top of page command file. So this is a file we want to have executed at every time we get to top of page. And in our case, that is the name of our forms file that contains our form and the definition of where our data is. So this means that every time we do a form feed, we'll automatically get the form put out on the new page. Let's now go back to the data dependent attribute and expand out ABC invoice. As you'll see here, I've actually created most of it, but there's one line ID which I have got no code for, and that is the address box. But first let's have a quick look. Now all these things here with the little red circles, they are in effect subroutines, and they are called, and as you can see they in fact have been given the names of our line identifiers. So I have a separate subroutine to handle each type of line that comes in. And down the bottom here we have another declaration that says input lines 1 to 66. This means that all the code that's in here will be executed for every line that comes in. Now line 1 equal 1 and page 1 equal 1 I call init to initialize a variable. This is very handy to do this. Sometimes you need to have variables declared before you use them. And the last one here is I actually do a call, and I call the value in $current data, which is the line of data being brought into EOM, and in positions 1 to 5 is the line ID. So I will call that line ID, which will be one of these ones up here. Another point of interest is up here you've got directory alias. This is for the initial form file. This is so the DDA knows where to find the names of those fields on your form. And you say the form file name is abcinvoice.diff. So the DDA will know where to find the fields on your form. So we have to declare this. Now let's build the code for the address line ID ADDR1. And what we want to do here is to print some data from our input line onto the form. So we go down till we find the instruction, which is print data. And we declare here the data coming in. The data is coming from a line called $current data. $current data is a system variable that holds the last line of data that was brought into EOM, and position 6 to 35. That means that we're going to bring in data off that line from position 6 to position 35. Now the output can either go out by a coordinate position or it can go out by a field position. In our case we've got fields on our form, so we can expand the form field and find the name on our form. If I drop this box down here, we've got customer address. So this means that we're going to extract the data from column 6 to column 35 and put it onto the field called customer address. Now we're going to use another command here called the clone command. This is where we bring up especially a copy of it and can alter it and make a new command. Now with the address, we know that the address is to go into two places on that form. One is at the top and one is at the bottom, where the remittance notices. So we go customer address bottom. Okay, so we now printed the customer's address in two fields on the form. It's worth noting here too that those tables, there's a pointer for every table. Every time we write something into the table, it increases the pointer by one line. So we gradually keep writing stuff one line down as we go printing. Now next, what we're going to do, we now need to print that header information. So we'll go up here and we shall select print data, and we'll select our data again. It's coming out of $current data and it's position 37 to 48. We're doing it by field name, so we're going to choose the field name, and the field name we called was header detail. So we shall now put that address information in the header detail. So we're now completed mapping all our input data onto our form. The next thing to do is to produce a file input mask so that we can receive the input file and print it out automatically. So we select file masks, go plus, give it a mask name, and in the mask we have to put some mask statements, the criteria for the mask to check. In this case we know that user tag 1 contains the name of our job. So we do a test on user tag 1 to see if equals BC underscore invoice. We add that to the mask. We can tick true. If we have more than one statement they all have to be true, then we have to tick this box so that all conditions will be tested to be true before this mask will be actioned. In this case we're only using one criteria. Okay, once we come in through the mask, the set of conditions have been satisfied. There are a number of jobs that we can do. In our case we want to do a print job. So we're going to configure a print job. So we add a print job and we choose the print attribute we're going to use for this print job, and we know it's ABC invoice. Now the printer, we could in fact here choose a printer from one of the ones in the list, but we want to do print dynamically by the data that's coming in with our information from the application. To do that we put in a system variable between greater than less than signs. Now we know that the system variable containing our printer name is user tag 2. We'll put that in there. That means now that when the mask conditions are satisfied, we will do a print job using print attribute ABC invoice, and we'll get the printer name and a user tag 2. So now we've built a mask with a condition that says if user tag 1 equals to that, the mask has been satisfied, and if it is satisfied we will do a print job using ABC invoice to our printer that's contained in user tag 2. We now just need to make the mask active and do a save. If the save is successful, you should see the word ready down the bottom here. Okay, so let's now go back to our Word pad and look at the document there, and let's now print that, our dummy data, into EOM. To do that we go to print, which is our printer, which is LP001, which we set up earlier, and do a print. If we've been successful here, we should find that the print has come through the correct mask, ABC invoice, and if we double click on the print file either here in the print management window, we should see what we expect, which is our invoice with our name, header information up the top here, the detail, and down the bottom. We should also see we've got a name down here. So we just close that off, and we can do the same thing again in the file management window. There we are. Okay, so our print job is now complete. Thank you.